Welcome back, everyone, to the Late Night Review. And tonight I thought I'd talk about a movie that I have a lot of nostalgia for, and usually I do that. But this is a movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in, and maybe a lot of people haven't seen it, haven't heard of it, because it's one of his lesser known movies. He did it in his early career. Not as early as Conan and The Terminator, which were awesome. I mean, those are two of his most iconic roles. This movie, maybe a lot of people forgot about it, but I got a lot of nostalgia for it. I used to see it all the time, watched it all the time when I was a kid. I'm talking about Raw Deal. It's called Raw Deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He goes undercover in this movie, and he infiltrates the mafia to discover who ordered the hit, who killed some, I believe, FBI agents or law enforcement agents. It's been a little while since I've seen it from beginning to end, but I've seen it a ton when I was a kid. Darren McGavin is in this movie, the Night Stalker, Darren McGavin. He hires Arnold to do this job, to go undercover. And it's a fun movie. It's a good movie. It might not be for everybody. I think Arnold fans will appreciate it and like it. I got a lot of this is nostalgia. Love this movie. I've got a lot of nostalgia for it, and it's actually still one of my favorites. It doesn't really compare, obviously, to the Terminator or anything like that, or some of his other films like Total Recall or anything like that. But it's one of my favorites. I really do like it. It's a movie that I have a lot of nostalgia for. It has a good action in here. It's got a pretty good pace. It's not a slow movie. And I believe Darren McGavin's son was murdered. He was killed by some mafia hitmen, and he wants to get them. And he hires Arnold to go undercover into the mob to find out who did it, and among other things too, to find out information about who's doing what and what the boss is doing and all that. And this movie, it does have a lot of action. There's some funny scenes in here too. There's actors in here that you'd seen in other movies. If you're into action, especially like 80s action, 80s and 90s. Like I said, Darren McGavin, Kochak, the Night Stalker, he's in here. He plays Arnold's friend. And I think that and I like the score too. Arnold is big and strong, obviously, like in all his movies, got a lot of charisma. But the thing is, I love Arnold's early movies and some of his later movies, definitely too. But I had so much nostalgia for I grew up watching Arnold. I grew up watching Conan, the Terminator. I was taken to see the Terminator in 1984 at the theater when I was a kid, so I was about 7 years old. 47 now, but I had a lot of nostalgia for the Terminator. I had a lot of nostalgia for Arnold in general. I remember seeing bodybuilding magazines when I was a kid. I saw bodybuilding magazines that my uncle had. We went to the library. They had some Flex magazines, and then I remember seeing Pumping Iron on TV when I was a kid on one of the pay channels, I think, or just TV. Then later rented it, had it rented for me, and watched it. Arnold was such a big deal, and he's such an inspiration. So almost anything he was in, I wanted to see. Even the villain with him and Kirk Douglas or Hercules in New York. Actually, I like though. I have a fun time with those movies. As bad as they are in certain ways, I have a fun time with those movies. This movie's a better movie than those, better put together, better editing and acting. It's not great, but if you like action and if you like Arnold, give this movie a chance. It has a good pace, and there's a couple funny scenes in here, some good shootouts, some good fight scenes. Some of the fighting in here, just like with a lot of action movies, is not very realistic, but it's fun. Arnold fights in here, and sometimes he uses brute force, not so much skill. He used more skill in Commando. This movie, not as much, but still, he gets the job done, and there's some good shootouts. There's a good scene where Arnold gets armed and he goes to this gravel pit, this one construction site where a lot of the mafia guys are. a lot of bad people are, and he has his guns, and there's a big shootout with him, and he takes a lot of them down, and he gets in his car, he shoots out the front windshield, and he puts the Rolling Stones music on. I Can't Get No Satisfaction. The Rolling Stones are, by the way, the music, that's my favorite music of any band, by the way, is the Rolling Stones. And there's some close second and thirds, and then I love 80s music. But anyway, he shoots out the front windshield so he can shoot, so he doesn't have any obstruction there with the glass. Has his bag of weapons, he's armed, he's got weapons on him, puts in I Can't Get No Satisfaction, and then he drives through the construction site shooting guys. That's a fun scene, it's an entertaining scene. And there are actors in here that I'd seen in other films, quite a few. One of the bad guys in the Star Chamber is in here. He plays, he's a guy that's, he's kind of a weaselly guy you can't trust. He's a politician, but he's also working with the mob too, and he's one of their people on the inside, and he kind of rats both ways, and you'll see it, but I forgot his name. I've seen him in multiple movies, but he was in the Star Chamber with Michael Douglas, the mafia guy, the mafia boss in here. I'd seen him in plenty of other movies. He's a good actor. And I think Dick Durock, who played Swamp Thing, I think he has a small, very tiny little part in here as one of the mob guys that gets arrested. And then there's plenty of other people in here. Davies. Davies, the guy that was in Die Hard 1, played the FBI agent. He's in here. I like his acting. Many other people in here that I'm kind of forgetting their names. I remember Darren McGavin because I always used to watch The Night Stalker. It's got a good cast. I think everyone in here acts well, especially for an action movie. I think it's competent. I think it's good. There's a really and then one of the guys in Scarface that was with Al Pacino is in this movie too. But one of the funny parts in this movie is where Arnold's attacking one of the buildings where the main mafia boss guy is holed up with his people, other mafia members, and Arnold is killing so many of them. And oh, Sven Ole Thorson is also in this movie too, as one of the mob guys, one of the enforcers or hitmen, one of the guys, one of the guys in the building. And but you'll see him. But anyway, Arnold attacks the building with all his weapons. He's killing so many of them that the mafia guy, the boss, tells his underling, he says, call the cops. And then the other guy says, what? Call the cops. It's a funny scene. He tells him to call the cops because Arnold's killing so many of his guys. It's a funny scene towards the end of the movie. Call the damn cops. But it was that's it. There's quite a few funny scenes in this movie. And Arnold, often when he does action, he has great one-liners. Not just in the Terminator, I'll be back, but in Commando. In this one, he has some decent one-liners. Not as many as Commando, but and then in Predator, he had a lot of different one-liners. And some of his action movies have really funny parts in it. And I think that's one of the reasons he was offered the movie Twins later, because they knew he had that humor in him. Twins is one of my favorite movies of all time. This is a good Arnold movie to me. It's a good Arnold Schwarzenegger movie to me. It might not be for everybody. A lot of the reason I like it is 80s nostalgia. I like the score. I like the scenery in here. I like Arnold. Obviously, Arnold's always been one of my favorites. I like the fight scenes in here. They're pretty good, and especially the shootout scenes. I like the interaction between Arnold's character and some of the mafia guys in here. I like the interaction between Arnold and Darren McGavin. He's got to check in with them and report and tell him what's happening, what he knows, what information he discovered, and if there's any new updates about who killed his son and all that. And it's a good movie. It's a movie with purpose. It's got, it's inspirational. Arnold, to me, is always inspirational. Ever since I was a kid, I watched his movies, and then I had to work out. even though I've never been deep into bodybuilding or anything, not like the boxing and the martial arts, because I come from a fighting family and I focused on that more, but I always used resistance training, functional most of the time, just functional resistance training. But I tried a little bodybuilding, just a little, not much, because of Arnold. And it was tempting whenever I saw Arnold's picture, or seen a movie with him, or seen a movie with Steve Reeves, or watched Superman cartoons, or seen like a Silver Age big buff painting of Superman, then I was tempted, gee, I want to lift heavy and do that and get bigger. But my goal's always kind of been functional training. But gosh, he's always been an inspiration, and just so pumped to see him in a lot of different movies. And every time he came out with a new movie when I was a kid, I wanted to see it so much. And I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. It might not be for everybody, but I do like Raw Deal. I do like it. I like the country music at the beginning when he's chasing this guy who's evading him on a motorcycle, and Arnold's after him. It's got that 80s atmosphere that I like. It's got that 80s vibe. I actually thought at the beginning of the movie he kind of reminded me a little bit of um, uh, what's his name? The guy that played Buford Pusser in Walking Tall Part 1. Can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I should know him just like that. But kind of reminded him, just the way he had his hairstyle in the beginning of this movie, Raw Deal, kind of looked like him, a bigger version of him. And that was one of my favorite movies, Walking Tall. That was really a good movie. I, I I should know that actor like the back of my hand, but I haven't seen the movie for a while. That was inspired by a true story. This movie's not inspired by a true story. It's got some realistic parts in here, not like the first Walking Tall, but it's a good movie. It's competent. It's a fun Arnold movie. It's got some serious parts in here too, and it's, to me, it's worth watching. And if you haven't seen it, check it out, especially if you like Arnold. If you don't really like the action or the 80s cheese, or you don't like some of the earlier movies of Arnold, you might not like it, but I like it. And if you do like Arnold and his action movies, I think you'll probably enjoy it, especially if you're into that 80s cheese like I am. So check out Raw Deal. I think you'll like it if you're into it. This has been the Late Night Review. And please like and subscribe and share this video so other people can see this type of content, pump it up, hype it up. And have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.